Alright guys, we're going to talk about Hanukah, the Feast of Dedication. We're going to have a series of videos, guys. It's not really possible to get all the content information in one video. But this is one of the most significant feasts as it relates to end times. We find connected to this feast the major prophecies of the daily sacrifice cease, the abomination that makes desolate, Daniel chapter 11, and of course Christ in his Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. We're going to give a full breakdown of that in the course of these videos, but I just want to do a little sit down and do a little talk and kind of set the stage for what we're going to get into. On this channel, guys, we just get into the scriptures, what they say, okay, and the types and shadows and the things that the Lord Jesus taught us. So the most significant prophecies, he said, heaven and earth will pass away. My words will not pass away. Very significant prophecies. So we take those very serious, and we actually have to really study to know what it is he's talking about and what it means. All right. So we come across this feast called Hanukah. Hanukah in English is dedication. And guys, keep in mind all the things I'm telling you. The devil doesn't want you to know the truth. This is why, of course, in Christianity, our pastors, everybody has been very ignorant in the Protestant, especially side of things, about this feast, about the book of Maccabees. Some of you might say, well, Leland, the book of Maccabees is not in the Bible. Well, it is, because whenever you see things in the New Testament or the Old Testament, doesn't matter, either or, they reference books. They reference the book of Enoch. They reference the book of Jasher. They reference the book of Maccabees. Yes. So, of course, Christ keeps the feast in John chapter 10, verse 22. He goes to Jerusalem for the time of the feast. So he's obviously keeping the feast, all right? And guys, keep in mind, I know there's going to be a lot of attacks on this feast, and let's address some paganism. So, in terms of the abomination that makes desolate, it finds its way into Christian paganism by the celebration of Christmas. That's right. So it's at this time of year where the abomination that makes desolate was set up. Okay? And it was set up as a statue and an altar sacrificing a pig. Okay? So if you have pork in Christmas, this is why. Okay, sacrificing a pig and setting up an image, a statue of Zeus around the time period of what we're approaching here, the winter solstice. Okay, so that's what Christmas is. It's getting you to worship Zeus, and in doing so, you are worshiping Satan. So it's very unfortunate that the history and knowledge of this has been eluded from the people. We're just blind and ignorant, following pagan feasts, worshiping the devil without knowing why. That's why videos like this and series like this are very important for us. And we have been teaching this for years. So if you're still celebrating Christmas, it's a pagan holiday, all right? And we have other videos. We'll put a link in the description field on pagan Christmas and Easter. So that's why you sacrifice a pig on Easter, and the practice of birthdays is also pagan, guys. So even you say, oh, I want to celebrate Christ's birthday. There's no birthdays in the Bible. There's only two. It's Herod and it's Pharaoh. Okay? And the celebrations of birthday. That's it. That you won't find Christ's birthday. It doesn't say. Okay? Why? Because you're not supposed to celebrate it. Because he's Alpha and Omega. Before there was, he is. Okay? So how does that have a birth? Okay? So don't celebrate Christmas. Okay, and let's talk about Jewish paganism. So then what happened is Christmas became this great, the predominant, pagan feast. And so wherever the Jews were, the rabbis were in conflict with this pagan feast. So they came up with this idea of lights. So they incorporated lights into the idea of Hanukah, by coming up with this story that the oil lasted more days, and it's not in the scriptures, guys. When we talk about the scriptures, what we're talking about is the book of Maccabees. There's book number 1 and book number 2. That story of the oil is not there. It came centuries later, and it came as a way for the Jews to compete with the Christians in their pagan feasts, to make it more of like a nice, because Hanukkah is not a nice feast, guys. It's not a pretty happy thing. All right, it's war. It's about destruction. It's about the abomination that desolates. It's about apocalyptic events. And it's about understanding paganism, understanding idol worship, understanding the tactics of the devil that incorporate themselves, okay, into a beast system. Okay, so as we try to overcome the beast, or as we overcome the beast, we have to understand what he's doing. All right, what he's doing, he changes the laws of times, he changes the feast, he switches the calendar. Everything is done to get the masses of the people to worship the beast. So, of course, that's been going on for the long time with the Catholic Church and the changing of the calendar and the changing and instituting of these feasts, okay? So the Jews did the same thing where they made it lights and made this nice thing to, it's not a nice feast for the children or whatever, so let's, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all the winter feasts have been a distraction from the truth, okay? So for us, as believers, we have these books that are not in our canon, okay? But Christ went and he celebrated this feast, and he alludes to it. So in Matthew 24, Luke 13, Luke 21 and Mark 13, in his discourse, there's a section of prophecy that deals with Hanukah. Obviously, when you read about the abomination that makes desolate, spoken by Daniel. Okay, so Daniel details a prophecy. So this is what we're going to get into, guys. We're going to get into history in this series. So Hanukah happened 168, 67, 66 BC. Okay? It's the Maccabean revolt against the Greeks. So it's a time period, interesting time period of transition from the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire. Okay? So in that time period, we have this Antichrist figure, Antiochus Epiphanes, come to Jerusalem, fulfilling many of the prophecies of Daniel chapter 11. Okay, so it gives us this important type and shadow, because then when we get to Christ, Christ talks about the same thing in the last days. So the early Christians and the apostles understood what he was saying as it related to Hanukah. Okay, and they needed to know this because what was going to happen? So the Greeks did this, and then the Romans were also going to destroy the temple, and there's going to be another apocalyptic event, of course, in 70 AD with Titus, okay? So when he's saying these prophecies, he's saying, when you see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, when you see these things, take heed, okay? So they're like, okay, they knew what he was talking about. He was talking about things like Hanukah, okay? But in Hanukah, Judas went to war against the Greeks, all right? So the early Christians, they didn't go to war against the Romans. They're like, okay, when he says these things, flee, okay? So that's why we're sharing with you guys on things of how to flee, how do we understand this prophecy in our day? We will have to flee, okay? And it's not that if you're in Judea, you flee. No, it's wherever you are, the beast is coming after, the true believers everywhere. It's the war against the saints, okay? So we have lots of videos on that, like, okay, how do we prepare for this? We have the whole playlist on war, okay? So Hanukah gives this idea of war, and it gives us this idea of, okay, so Judas goes physically to war, and he defeats all these nations. It's like a Armageddon, okay? But along with that, leading up to that, you have Hellenistic things going on, hedonism. So basically the Greeks come in, subdue the culture, and everyone has to follow the calendar, follow the pagan feasts, stop any of the other laws or traditions, okay? Stop all that and worship Zeus, okay? I mean, that's what it is, all right? So there were those that were like, no, we won't do that. And so the idea of war was sacrificing your life, because the belief in the resurrection. So now in the end of days, we have this the same scenario. Are we taking arms? Are we taking swords? Or are we acknowledging in the prophecy that we are not to love our lives unto death, okay? And we are to sacrifice ourselves. That's the other story, is this twofold thing. So there is war, okay? We know that's Armageddon, that's coming, all right? But we also have this time period, well, I don't care what you say, I'm not going to compromise. I will sacrifice my life, and I will not compromise by the changing of these laws, changing of these things, right? Okay. Very important story as it relates to the apocalyptic events in Revelation. Okay, so in Matthew 24, 25, it all is detailed in the book of Revelation, except a small portion. And that small portion deals with what Christ said when you see the prophet Daniel, when you see the mountains flee, woe to them. Okay, if you have to take your flight in the winter, okay, winter is Hanukah, that is this time period, okay, and this is this allusion to the story of Hanukah, to understand that story, okay, the Sabbath, keeping the Sabbath, all right. So the beast is going to come against those that are keeping the Sabbath, okay, and all those things there in Matthew relate to Hanukah. We're going to get into the details later, all right. But guys, it's at this precise day. Today is November 29th. And it's the 15th day of the 9th month. This is the day of the abomination that makes desolate. Yes, that's correct. It's precisely this day. This day there is a lunar eclipse as well. And it's the 15th day of the 9th month. Now Hanukah is the 25th day of the 9th month. Okay, so that's 10 days from now. The Feast of Hanukah takes place. It's over 8 days. Okay. And guys, don't ask me like what to do or dress up or, decorate your house. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about what the scriptures say. Okay, that's what the feasts mean, is to understand the scriptures so that you can apply the prophecy to your life in this war that we're in the end of days. Okay, so what happened? You have the abomination that makes desolate. You have a statue of Zeus being set up on the altar of God. All right, and when that happens, many people say, well, that happens in the last days when you have we are the temple, okay? And so the abomination that makes desolate is set up in us. Well, yes, okay? So as we're looking at this time period, today is the abomination that makes desolate. It's a lunar eclipse. It's a significant day. It goes back to the United Nations decree in July 29, 1947, okay, to establish Israel as a nation. On this day, we have a lunar eclipse, okay? It's the 15th day of the 9th month, the abomination that makes desolate. Can you see why I'm doing the video today? Very, very significant. And every year, significant things happen during this feast, going back to 2017. We'll mention that as we go, as you know, the coin. So yes, the believers corporately, spiritually, okay, form a temple. And of course, the Antichrist wants to come in and put a statue in the temple, okay, as an abomination makes desolate. Okay, that's this pharmakia. Okay, so we're sitting here, it's November 29th on this day. 2 weeks later, we have a full solar eclipse. All right, December 14th. That's during Hanukah. Okay, and then you have the winter solstice, December 21st. On that same day, you have a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, very, very significant. So what do these things mean? Well, the abomination that makes desolate, yes, it is the pharmakia. It is the changing of the DNA. It is the defiling of the temple. Okay, so spiritually, yes, that's why this thing is going to be rolled out within the next couple weeks, because the beast does it on Hanukah. Okay, it's on Hanukah. That's when that's the thing this year, is the pharmakia. All right, now let's talk about history. We got 1947, November 29th, the decree to establish a state of Israel, a Jewish state. They didn't call it Israel yet. Of course, it was established in 1948, the next year. So, very significant day today, okay? This relates to Cyrus' decree, all right? And so we got the counting of Cyrus, okay? That's when, in 2017, that's when they minted this coin, and they called it Cyrus, okay? We'll show you a little bit later. They have a new coin with Cyrus on it, okay? And they're counting the years in it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we knew that the Cyrus decree came precisely on the 24th day of the 9th month in 2017, okay? That's when Donald Trump moved the U.S. Embassy precisely on the day that, we had announced back in 2017. Very significant, all right? We come to the next year. The next year, what did they do? They set up the abomination that makes desolate in Hanukah, what? On the altar. Well, in 2018, they dedicated the altar. They dedicated the altar on Hanukah, okay? 2018, okay? The other thing about 2017, it was the dedication of the Third Temple. Yes, the synagogue, underground synagogue in the Third Temple was dedicated on Hanukah 2017. So you got the synagogue in Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:9. You have the altar. And then last year, 2019, what happened? Kanye West. Kanye West did a play called Nebuchadnezzar, and he kind of established himself as the musician to get the people to worship the beast. Okay, so we saw that last year. What's it this year? It could be something else too. I mean, that things are accelerating and the times are so crazy, but it looks like it's the pharmakia. Okay, so that's coming up, and it's most likely going to take place, guys, during not only this time period, but during Hanukah. All these things have happened on or in the Feast of Hanukkah. It's 8 days, but in this time period, okay, where it's the first couple weeks, mid-December. All right, so we're going to get into some fascinating things in this series. We're going to break down. We're having a sit down now, and just telling you what's coming. Okay, that's why I really encourage you to watch the other video where we talk about the abomination and desolate that has its roots in Hanukah at this time period, at this feast. Okay, we're gonna give you further information. We're going to read the book of Maccabees. I encourage you to read them, Maccabees 1 and 2, particularly the first book of Maccabees, like the first 6 chapters, guys, covers most of the story. You can read the second book of Maccabees too, which is a little bit more dramatic, but fascinating. Okay, fascinating. It really should be in our canon, guys, no question. It should be, especially the first book of Maccabees. Probably the book of Enoch should be, probably the book of Jasher. All of those books are referred to, okay, in the scriptures. All right, so we have this time period. It's significant transition, okay, from Greek to Roman. All right, and it gives us many types and shadows that Christ talked about for us to know in the end times. So once we get to Revelation 13, where we get the mark of the beast, what also do you have? You have the statue. The statue is set up, right? Okay, so the statue is set up. Everyone must bow, must worship the beast. Everyone must comply. So what we're seeing is, there's all these different right, left, it doesn't matter. The beast is now taking its, place to move over all the people. Okay, to get the people to comply to worshiping the beast, changing the laws and times and everything. It's all happening. It's all happening now. Okay, so that's what we're gonna get into in this series. We're gonna get into, we're gonna get into the details in Daniel 11 of what this looks like. Okay, so in Daniel 11, he prophesied of the abomination desolate, and it had 2 fulfillments. Okay, yes, it had a fulfillment with the time period of the Greeks, Antiochus Epiphanes, and the Maccabees, the Maccabean Revolt, and Hanukah. Yes. So we can look at all those types of shadows. Everything that we see there is exactly what Christ is talking about in Matthew 24. But in Matthew 24, he says, in the end of the days. So the end of the days is not 200 years before Christ. Okay, so Daniel 8, 9, 11. Okay, obviously they have an end times fulfillment through the book of Revelation. Through the book of Revelation, we see all the end times prophecies being fulfilled, but we have a portion of them that are only understood by Hanukah. By looking at Hanukah, by looking at the details, by looking at what Christ said and how it's fulfilled. Fascinating study. Definitely watch the previous video, Abomination Makes Desolate, as well. Watch the other video, guys. What we do on this channel, you guys can do whatever you want, but what we do is we watch for particular time periods of 1,335 days. So that's what we are watching for in 2017. In 2017, that comes on Hanukah. So 1,235 days. Okay, let's just run an example. I'll just run an example to just try to do this simply. It's going to be hard because I'm just speaking and whatever. But basically, if 1,335 days is 3.5 years, okay, that's 3 years and 6 months, plus another 2 months. 2 months and another 15 days. Okay, so for example, if we were to go back 3 years, we would go back to the first day of the first month in 2017. Count 1,335 days from 2017. Okay, so then we got 2018, 2019, 2020. Okay. Okay, in the spring, we started in the spring of the first day of the first month in 2017. We got 3 years, so that's in the spring of the year 2020. Then we go to 6 months. Okay, that brings us to the fall. So that's our half. So that's 3.5 years. Then we add another 2 months, and that brings us to precisely this day. Okay, the 15th day, okay, of the 9th month. So you count the 7th month is 3.5 years. Okay, from the first day of the first month, then you count 1 month, the 8th month, you count the 9th month, and then 15 days. Okay, so when you come to 15 days, that's this day, 15th day of the 9th month, or the memorializing of what happened with the abomination that makes desolate in the story of Hanukah. You see that? That's just an example, all right? Now, if you were to count on the Feast of Trumpets, 1,335 days, you come 3.5 years later, you would end up on Pentecost, okay? Just a quick example. Now, the other thing that we noticed is that the Sanhedrin has minted a new coin. So here's the new temple coin from the Sanhedrin. You can see it says, Cyrus, my anointed king. And remember, in Hebrew, that means Mashiach, Melech, okay, the Messiah. And so there you can see Cyrus. You see the 70 nations, the seats of the 70 nations, and the third temple. On the other side of the coin, we have a coin. This is a redemption coin, okay? And so you see the Sanhedrin coin, you have this redemption coin, and we have some examples of this that have been found in archaeology through some of the museums in Jerusalem. So if we look at it up close, what it's saying there is year 3 above the cup. And so here is that coin, shekel of Israel, year 3. Okay, so that's what it says on this side, and on the other side it says Holy Jerusalem. Okay, so that's the coin that they're showing us. Year 3. Okay, year 3. Year 3 of Cyrus. Okay, so in other images like this, guys, they're showing us that they've probably already built the third temple off-site somewhere. Okay, there you see the third temple kind of superimposed over Jerusalem with construction towers. So it's probably already built off-site. So year 3 of Cyrus. So what does that mean? Well, they minted this coin in 2017. Okay, so obviously this is 3 years after that. So it's the third year after Cyrus's decree. And what does this mean? Well, what it means is that there were certain decrees, certain things that took place during the years of the king, okay, including the rebuilding of the temple. We'll have another video on this, but I'm suggesting that they're saying, okay, rebuilding the third temple. With that picture, you could see the third temple superimposed. It's probably already built off-site, just has to be reassembled. So, the abomination of desolation, okay, it would have to be on the altar or in the holy place. Christ said, when you see the abomination that makes desolate, standing in the holy place. So that would, mean there'd be a third temple, okay? And that you'd see it. Okay, it could just happen and no one know, but you'd have to see it. It'd have to be in the holy place. Okay, so these are things we're watching for. And that's the significance around this prophecy. So, guys, this we'll have some more details on this. We'll have further breakdown, okay? But I really encourage you in this time to read the book of Maccabees, the first book of Maccabees, especially chapters like 1 through 6, and go back in some of the videos where we've talked about Hanukah before. So you'll see that we've talked about these things, okay? And then, we're kind of seeing them manifest. Okay, we're seeing them manifest now. And there's reasons why certain things are happening now. There's reasons why the pharmakia is coming out now. So that is the thing that defiles the temple. Okay? So what defiles the temple? So we have the temple detailed in Revelation 18. Okay, when it talks about the merchants bringing the materials and components, those are the third temple. And then we see the mark of the beast in Revelation 18, where it says, the candle will not be lit in you anymore. The voice of the bride and the bridegroom will be heard in you no more. Okay? Now, that also happened in the time of the Maccabees, okay? But that is really telling us about the time we're in now. Because the time we're in now, the candle going out is what's taking place with this pharmakia. So I know you guys are, most of you are aware of that, okay? But you're probably not aware of other things like details of the story of the Maccabean revolt. So we're going to get into it not just to tell stories, but to understand the prophecy, to see how that could be taking place now in ways we may not have expected. So that certainly comes into play as we look at Matthew 24 in this section of prophecy where Christ is talking about abomination that makes desolate. In Daniel, he's talking about those that are in Judea flee into the mountains. Woe are those that are nursing children in those days. Pray that your flight be not in winter. Okay, winter is Hanukah, and nor on the Sabbath day. Okay, so there are very few Christians keeping the Sabbath, but the beast is going to institute another Sabbath, which is Sunday. Okay, so the whole world will be doing Sunday instead of Saturday, so that's part of the changing of the laws in the seasons, okay? So we will see that consistently throughout, letting the world rest, and this is coming from the Vatican and even UN, etc. So these are the changing of the laws and time. So we have to understand these details of the prophecy because this is exactly what the beast is doing right in front of our face. But I know there's a lot of distractions and other things, but guys, this is a very serious time of year. A major prophecy has happened at this time of year. There may be more, we'll see. Certainly there will be. as it relates to, the Antichrist, the Pharmakia. I mean, these are the days of tribulation. So guys, we'll have some links in the description field for many of the things that we talked about. This will be a video within our feasts playlist. We have the Feast of Yahweh playlist where we talk about many of these feasts, and we teach on these feasts to get, the understanding of these times, okay? So guys, as we say, fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Worship him that made the heavens, the earth, the seas, and the fountains of waters. Amen.